everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Monica. I like to post anti-MLM, life, and some true crime content here on this channel. Hey everyone, Editing Monica here. I am so sorry, but I have no idea what happened to the audio after I uploaded it, so I'm so sorry. It took me a really long time to make the video, so I hope that it's okay if the audio is a little off in this one. But anyway, okay, let's get back to the video. Today, I will be discussing some true crime content and also kind of going over a little bit of MLM information in this. So just as a disclaimer, this video is for entertainment purposes only and also just my opinions. Along with that, because we are going to be doing true crime content, I do have to issue a warning. The following presentation is intended for mature audiences. It contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes, adult dialogue, and adult language. Viewer discretion is advised. So with that being said, now that I got all of the disclaimers out of the way, we are going to be discussing the Jodi Arias case today and how she murdered Travis Alexander. I followed this case when it first happened. Actually, my mom and I were following the case, and we also did watch that really corny Lifetime movie that they made about it. And in this video, I'm going to go over kind of from start to finish what happened. So I will put timestamps up on the screen somewhere of where I talk about the MLM information if you're any of my anti-MLM subscribers, and also where I will talk about, I guess, my final thoughts and things of that nature with this particular case, because y'all know I have an opinion about everything. But let's get into, I guess, let's kind of start off from the beginning of Jodi's life and I guess Travis's life a little bit, because I do want to give a little bit of background on each of them. So Jodi, she grew up in California. Apparently, from what I was able to find, they did move around a lot, her and her family, and they finally settled in a small town in California called Wairika. In this town, she was a teenager when they moved there, and she talked about it in her journal, which she said that she doesn't belong here and that kind of thing. Apparently, her parents had I believe it was a Mexican restaurant that she worked at as well as a teenager. She would later go on to talk about how she was abused as a child and how her parents would hit her with a belt or a wooden spoon, which I don't know if when she talked about this, if it was about discipline and not abuse. Now, I know this is a touchy subject because a lot of people would take that as abuse as well and not discipline. But if you think about the mindset of, I don't even know how to explain it, but if you think of a mindset of back in the day when that was actually a normal way to discipline children. So I don't know if it was more of a discipline thing or if she actually was abused, because I don't know, there's something about her that I feel like she's not telling us everything about her life, and she's also not really obviously she's not telling us the truth about what happened that night that she murdered Travis. But I feel like there might be something more to her story. That's just me, my opinion. And also, I'm not trying to defend her or give an excuse for what she did or anything like that. I'm just trying to, because how would I explain this? I'm interested in the mindset of someone who is able to do something that she did and be able to live with herself and then be able to go about her life. That is what I'm curious about. What makes a killer a killer? Or what makes someone snap one day and just murder someone and then just go about their life? That's what I'm interested in, is how does this happen? Why does this happen? Let's talk about Travis Alexander. Him and his siblings didn't have an easy beginning in their life. They didn't have an easy childhood until a little bit later. Both of Travis's parents were addicts, and he would later go on. He had a blog at some point, and he talked about in that blog about the struggles that they went through, how they would be malnourished because they would eat meals that didn't have any nutrition, and then they would end up eating things that were also rotting because that's all that they had. Apparently, the mother would sleep for most of the time, and they would have to kind of fend for themselves. And what ended up happening was their grandmother took all of them in, both Travis and all of his siblings, and she introduced them to the Mormon church and the Mormon religion. So there's a reason why I'm talking about that, because this plays a major role in this whole entire thing with Jodi. But Travis was, from what his friends and family have said in all of the interviews and things like that that I've watched, that he was very devoted to his religion. He was very devoted to following, I'm not familiar with the Mormon religion, so I don't know if it's considered a scripture or a Bible or what it would be called. So please don't take offense, anyone out there who is a Mormon. I'm not familiar with it at all. I'm really not. But he was very devoted to his religion. So with that being said, let's move on to how Jodi and Travis met and their story and what ends up happening in the future. Jodi took up photography when she was much younger. And what she ended up doing was she would just, in the interviews that she talked about, she would take pictures of just objects like her foot or her cat. And she ended up finding out that she really truly had a passion for this. And she decided to pack up her bags, leave the small town of Wairika, and she decided that she was going to move to another place in California, more of a resort area, more of basically where she could really further her photography and be able to make a living out of it. And while she was doing that, she ended up actually becoming part of a company called Prepaid Legal Services, which is now known as LegalShield. This is where the anti-MLM portion kind of comes in, but I'll go over the company a little bit later because it is a network marketing company. So she got involved in this company, and she would later meet Travis because he was also part of Prepaid Legal Services, also known as LegalShield now. I'm going to probably use those terms interchangeably throughout this whole movie or throughout this whole video. So if you guys hear either or, it's the same company. And there was a conference in Las Vegas in 2006 is where they would both go to this conference. And I'm going to try to be as respectful as I can in this video. However, I do have my own opinion about Travis as well. I honestly, okay, now he didn't deserve to get murdered. He didn't deserve to have any of that happen to him. There was this video that is circulating on YouTube of him speaking at one of these events and speaking to a crowd of people. And he starts it off with talking about how he's a single guy and how he's still a single guy 6 years later. So I do feel that he was probably a little bit of a ladies' man. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to blow my nose because my nose is really running. Give me 1 second. And he was just talking about this like very openly. So I do think that he was maybe a little bit of a ladies' man, a little bit. And a lot of people did say in their interviews that he was always looking for his wife because he was a good Mormon boy, and that was just what they, not their like final goal, but his goal was to find a good Mormon girl who would later become his wife. Now, at this conference, there was one of Travis's friends, they called him T-Dog. One of Travis's friends said, "Hey, I have this really beautiful girl that's on my team. I would love for you to meet her." And they meet. What ends up happening there is Travis asks her, "Hey, do you want to go to this executive dinner with me?" Because Travis was very high ranking in the company. And if you're one of my anti-MLM subscribers, we all know that means that there's a big downline, there's a big team under him. But anyway, I digress. And Travis's friend said that throughout this whole entire dinner, Jodi and Travis were talking. You could tell that there was like an instant connection. There was an instant, maybe not necessarily chemistry, but they just fit. And a lot of Travis's friends said that in the beginning, Jodi was great. She was a sweet girl. She was a nice girl. To add a little tidbit of information into this, at that time when Jodi went to this conference, Jodi was actually in a committed relationship of 4 years. However, it had become a little complicated because the guy that she was dating already was previously married and already had a kid before. And he didn't want to do that again. Whereas Jodi, she actually wanted to settle down. She wanted to have a family. She wanted to have kids. And she did want to get married. So that's why it was a little complicated. And of course, Jodi was looking for something else. And she found that something else within Travis at, this conference and this dinner. What would end up happening after this is they would have a long distance relationship because she lived in California. And Travis, he lived in Mesa, Arizona. So they would have this long distance relationship, and their halfway point was at one of his friends' house. And they would just meet there, and they would be really excited about it. And his friends that they would meet at their house, they said that she was a great girl. Of course, things would turn out to be a little different eventually, and Jodi would no longer be allowed at their house because of certain behaviors and stuff like that, but I'll get into that a little bit later. There was a book that Travis had that was called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. And what Jodi and Travis would end up doing was they were crossing things off of the list. They took this book, they started traveling to all of these places, and Jodi was really excited about their relationship, and she would post about it on her MySpace. If you are young and you don't know what MySpace is, MySpace was my personal favorite. I liked it better than Facebook. It was kind of like a Facebook, but a little bit different. You could make different things on your MySpace. You had a top 8, and your first friend was always Tom, and that kind of thing. And the crazy part, this is kind of eerie to me, is that her MySpace is still up, and all of her and Travis's pictures are still on her MySpace. So you can easily look that up, and you can easily just find these pictures of them and her MySpace. During this time is when Travis would go on to tell his friends that he really truly cares about Jodi, that he believes that he could be with her forever, and that if it wasn't him that would be with her forever, then whoever landed her as his wife would be an extremely lucky guy. So, of course, the relationship is going really well and that kind of thing. And then it turned into a little bit more than just canoodling. At the same time, Travis would end up baptizing Jodi into the Mormon church, so she would become a Mormon girl. However, it is absolutely forbidden in the Mormon church to have premarital sex. And they ended up doing that. Now, Travis, according to his friends, Travis was kind of walking around with a little bit of guilt because he had this morality issue at this point that he even called Jodi his kryptonite, and he was so just infatuated and addicted to Jodi. All of that was just a big part of their relationship. And because Jodi would basically fulfill whatever desires that Travis had in that aspect of their relationship, she was no longer perceived as, even though she got baptized, she was no longer perceived as a good Mormon girl that would be, in the end, a wife for Travis. After a couple of months of the relationship and this crazy, just intimate things that they did behind the scenes, things started to go a little south. Jodi would become very possessive over Travis to the point where his friends actually had a conversation with him and told him that they're worried. There was an interview that they did, I believe it was a 2020 interview, and one of Travis's friends, her and her husband, they sat Travis down and they said, listen, we're afraid because of how possessive she is, because this girl, she would read all of his text messages, she would go through all of his emails. She even, at one point, any email that was to or from a woman, she would forward to herself. And it got to the point where she would follow him when he went to the bathroom or another room. She would be waiting outside of the door for him. That's a little creepy, and that is more than just what Pauly D would call a stage 5 clinger. That is just possessive. And so his friend sat him down one night in their bedroom, and she told him, listen, Travis, I'm afraid that one of these days we're going to find out that your body is chopped up into pieces and in her fridge or something like that. Or fridge or freezer, I can't remember the exact wording. Jodi had been listening to this conversation on the outside of the door. And that night, the friends of Travis, they told him, she's no longer allowed in our home. We do not feel comfortable with her being in this house. And that was the end of her coming to their house. Travis would later tell them, because Jodi concocted this story of she got an email from an anonymous man, and he was telling her that he knows where she lives, and he knows that Travis lives in Arizona, and that he's going to come after her, or that he was basically stalking her in this email, and that Travis doesn't deserve her, and all this kind of stuff. So Travis brought this to his friends, and his friends told him, she wrote this email. This is fake. This is not a real thing. And Travis would fight them and say, listen, but like, she's actually really scared. She's actually terrified. And they told him that this is just a way for her to be able to move closer to you so that the relationship doesn't end. And of course, he didn't really, I mean, I guess he started to kind of understand, like, yeah, okay, I can see how this would be fake. And you would think that when a relationship is over, it's just that. It's over. However, Jodi took this as, I'm going to move to Mesa, Arizona to be closer to Travis. So she moved to Arizona. Apparently, they were still doing their friends with benefits kind of a deal. But Travis had started dating some girls at this time. He was dating some girls that he thought would be his future wife. They were good Mormon girls. They were pure. And what I mean by pure is they were virgins. They didn't have premarital sex, that kind of thing. And Jodi didn't like this, obviously. And she would end up slashing his tires. She would end up sending emails to the girls that he was dating. And she basically made their lives just horrible. And to the point where she just, I want to say she just went off the deep end. I think that the jealousy really turned into a rage. And it just turned into a whole nother form of jealousy, to be completely honest, because there's jealousy and then there's Jodi kind of a jealousy. After about 8 months of Jodi living in Mesa, Arizona, Travis told her and somehow convinced her to move back home, to move back to California, move back to your family. I want nothing to do with you. And he finally had a fresh start. And in April of 2008, they were both already starting to see other people. Jodi had also started to, I guess, have some kind of, not necessarily a relationship, but she started to kind of talk to this guy named Ryan Burns, and he was also a Mormon, but he lived in a completely different state too, so that was kind of a long distance thing. But Jodi and Travis were still in contact. Jodi and Travis would have very intimate conversations on the phone, and Jodi recorded it. They would later play these at Jodi's trial. And let me just tell y'all, they're dirty. They're dirty. And I think that once they played that at the trial is when, and they played this in front of Jodi's family, in front of Travis's family, and the whole time that they were playing this, you could see Jodi like hiding behind her hair. She was literally hiding behind her hair, and you could see that she was just so embarrassed and so ashamed of these recordings. But I think that it was a way to kind of show that Travis wasn't the person that everyone had thought, that he wasn't just, dating around and looking for his future wife. He was having a very intimate relationship with someone, and this went against everything that he stood for when it came to his beliefs, his Mormon beliefs. Then, all of a sudden, Travis and Jodi started fighting. Out of all of the interviews and videos that I watched, it was not clear as to what they started fighting about, but it was bad. And they started fighting, and Travis was telling her, this is over. You have to understand that this is over. Then in early June is when Jodi had plans to go out to visit Ryan Burns, the guy that she had been talking to. She was going out to visit him. I believe he lived in Salt Lake City, Utah, is where he lived. And Travis was planning at the same time, he was planning to go to Cancun. There was a company retreat kind of a deal that was happening in Cancun, Mexico. And at the time, he had been kind of talking to this girl. Her name was Mimi. He had been kind of talking to this girl. And according to what his friends said in all of their interviews, it seemed like Mimi was actually a really serious relationship. And I think that maybe this was the girl for him, or at least that's what he thought. So he had asked Mimi if she wants to come on this trip with him. Somehow, Travis's friends were able to convince Mimi to go on this retreat with him to Cancun. Now, mind you, this is in early June. If you know this story, you know what happens next in this month. So this was June 2008. All of a sudden, when they're supposed to go on this trip to Cancun, Travis just completely stops responding to his friends. No one can get in touch with him. And he even missed a training call, which his friend said was not like him. He was very serious about his work, and he would never miss any kind of training call. He would never miss anything that had to do with work. So this is where they realized something isn't right. This isn't normal. This is not like Travis to do something like this. And on June 9th of 2008, a few of Travis's friends, they actually went over to the house that Travis was staying at. Now, the house that Travis was staying at, he actually had roommates because he was renting out like a couple of rooms or something like that in the house. So they get to the house, they ask the roommates, hey, can you unlock his door? Because his door is locked. And so his roommate opens the door. And as soon as they open the door, there is a foul smell of rotting. Something was rotting in there. They didn't know what it was at the time. And then they actually walk into the room. There's blood everywhere. They walk into the bathroom and they found Travis in the shower, dead. They end up calling 911, of course, and they all show up. And Detective Flores was actually on this case. He was part of, taking care of this case and getting to the nitty-gritty. How did this happen? Who did this? And so he arrived at the scene, and he automatically knew that this was personal. This wasn't like a home invasion or anything like that. This was personal. Someone really, truly wanted Travis dead. And this is where it gets a little graphic. And I actually, when I was researching this case, I stumbled upon the crime scene photos. I do not recommend looking them up because they're pretty graphic. I'm not gonna lie. That was really crazy to see. Anyway, Travis was stabbed 27 to 29 times. And I say 27 to 29 because each thing that I was finding, it was inconsistent. Some sources said 27, other sources said 29, so maybe they just couldn't count everything all together. And they had said that the stab wounds were very, very deep. That it wasn't just like a little, it was someone was really trying to hurt Travis. The way that the prosecution, because they basically tried to make the crime scene and they tried to figure out how did this happen to Travis. Their theory is that he was first stabbed in the chest And then he went over to the sink and he was coughing up blood, and he was then stabbed in the back. And then he struggled to try to get out of the room, and he fell. And then at that point, his throat was cut from ear to ear, almost decapitating him. So after that happened, he was shot in the temple. Obviously, like I said, there was a struggle. Detective Flores said that they couldn't find any weapons at the scene, and apparently it took them 3 days at the crime scene to be able to go through everything, try to find something, and that kind of thing. And Detective Flores said that just on accident, he looked down at one of the piles of blood, I guess you can say, and he saw something shiny. And it was a bullet casing from a 25 auto, I think is what it was. So that is important to know, because about a week before all of this happened, before Travis was murdered, there was a report of a stolen 25 auto from Jodi's grandparents' house. That is a little odd, Jodi. How do you explain that? Jodi ends up calling the police station and talking to Detective Flores on her own. She ended up calling him by herself, and the detective was saying that when she called, she just immediately put herself on the suspect list, because he said that it was almost as if she was interviewing him instead of him interviewing her. And he ended up telling her, okay, well, he got to the fact that they had a relationship, they had an intimate relationship. So of course, this puts her on the suspect list. And he tells her, hey, next time you're in town, we're taking DNA, we're taking statements, that kind of thing, from anyone who knows him, anyone who has ever been involved with him, that kind of thing. And Jodi says, yeah, absolutely, I'm actually going to his memorial service. So she goes to the station and she talks to the detective. And she changed her story multiple times, and they were able to basically say that she was at the scene, that she was there the night that Travis was murdered. Her first story says that she was going to see Ryan and that she got lost in the desert, because they were like, well, why did it take you so many extra days to get there when it should have only taken you this amount of days? Well, I got lost, is what she said. She also said that her phone died. And so obviously she was doing this so that they couldn't track her. But before she left, she was known to have 3 canisters of oil in her car. Her explanation for this was because she was traveling through the desert and she didn't want to get stranded somewhere, so she filled up some gas canisters so that she could just fill her tank on the way there. Now here's the part that kind of creeps me out a little bit, is that, I mean, it all creeps me out, but the crazy part is that when she went to Ryan's house, she was already canoodling with a new guy after she had just murdered someone. And he said that she did have cuts on her hands, but that she didn't seem like anything was wrong. They made out a little bit, but nothing else happened, because they're, you know, he's a Mormon and that doesn't happen. That's not supposed to happen. It's against the rules, that kind of thing. But that when she showed up, her hair was brown. Now, they said that before she went to Travis's house, she had actually dyed her hair brown already, so that no one would see that the blonde that was already going to his house a lot, no one would have been able to see her. And apparently at one point, I believe that she rented a car at this point too. But anyway, so she kept denying that she was there. She had no idea how they could even place her at the scene. But here's where Jodi made a mistake. The camera. There was a camera that apparently they used to take photos of themselves in provocative poses, that kind of thing. The timestamp puts her there on June 4th. which is when he was murdered. And on top of that, they were able to recover, obviously they were able to recover the photos because of the memory card that was in it. They were able to recover the photos. And on that memory card, they also found photos of the actual murder in progress. So when Jodi was questioned about this, she said, oh, well, that does kind of look like me. Girlfriend, it is you. Like, how can you possibly, at that point, how can you possibly try to argue anything? Like, how can you possibly try to come up with some kind of story, but she ends up coming up with a story, okay? She ends up coming up with a story, and now, before this story comes out, she was booked, and before she was booked, she asked if she could at least clean herself up a little bit and maybe do her makeup, that kind of thing. Well, the cameras were still rolling in the interrogation room, and they got her on tape singing Oh Holy Night. She was singing other songs, and all of a sudden she starts doing a handstand. Her reasoning for the handstand was because she knew she was getting booked. She didn't know, or that she was, obviously getting arrested and that kind of thing. She didn't know that if she would ever see carpet again. So she just randomly does a headstand. Just randomly, And then when they take her mugshot and everything, she smiles in the mugshot. So that's kind of odd. And then it gets better. She comes in the next day. She comes up with another story. Apparently this story, it ends up being considered like the ninja story is what people started calling it, that these two figures that were dressed in, they had ski masks on, they came in, and they were there to assassinate Travis and all this kind of crazy stuff. She came up with this elaborate story, but there were holes in her story that Detective Flores he kept asking her, oh, well, you said this just a few minutes ago, but now you're saying this, get your story straight. And then Detective Flores asks her, well, why did they just let you go? And she says that, well, because they told me that they weren't there for me. Okay, well, why didn't you call the cops? Because they said that if I call the cops, they would do the same to my family what they did to Travis. Okay, so there's that story, right? Jodi awaited her trial for 4 years, and then her trial finally started. Again, her story had changed for the third time. But before we get into what story she used this time around, she came into the courtroom looking completely different. Before, she was this blonde bombshell, this really just eye-catching woman, beautiful woman. And she walks in, and someone, I forget who it was, but someone said, and they said it best, that she comes in looking like a librarian. She comes in with, obviously, her hair is brown. She said that they don't sell the hair dye that she uses in prison, so that was her natural hair color. So whatever, that's your natural hair color, I get it. But she comes in with bangs and glasses, and all of a sudden she's super modest with what she's wearing. Now, I don't know if this came from her lawyers, if they told her to do this, or if she did this on her own to kind of paint this different picture of her, which I don't know why she would even do that, because they obviously had pictures of her and Travis when they were dating, when she was this blonde bombshell kind of a girl. So I don't know. Anyway, so she ends up testifying, and her story changes for the third time, just like I said. She ends up saying that all of this happened because it was self-defense. That Travis was trying to attack her. Apparently, he was abusing her physically. There were a couple of times that she did this. There's no evidence of this. This is just her saying this. And that she had dropped the camera, and that Travis got mad, so he went after her, and she's claiming self-defense. Girlfriend, if you've changed your story so many times, who is going to believe you at this point, okay? And then she proceeds to try to paint this picture of Travis being this horrible person, and that he abused her, and that this is the kicker. She tried to say that he was looking at pictures of little boys while he was doing other things with his parts. So she tried to paint him as this pedophile, which you already killed the guy. Why make it even worse? Why don't you just tell the truth? Just tell the truth. She even said it because she did some interviews when all of this was going on, and she even said in the interview that, mark my words, I'm not gonna get convicted because I didn't do it. But you did, and you admitted to doing it. So within this story, Jodi says that obviously she said it was self-defense in her story. So then when they asked her, okay, well, what about all of the stab wounds? Because she said that she did shoot him. She has no recollection of that. No recollection of any of that. So you brutally murdered this man, and you have no recollection of that. That's a little suspicious. Like I said before, Jodi would go on to have the recordings of their conversations played in the courtroom in front of their families. And of course, this is when people would start to know that Travis did have another side. They tried to paint a picture of him being this sexual deviant kind of a thing. I honestly don't think that he was. I think that he just met this woman and he was just addicted to her, and she fulfilled every fantasy that he wanted. So, I mean, of course it would turn into something like that. But they would show pictures of Jodi in this one t-shirt that said Travis Alexander, like she was his property or something. And she would say that that was Travis's idea, when there's a lot of speculation that says, I mean, obviously Travis can't defend himself, unfortunately, but a lot of people were saying that she did that. She made that shirt. There were also these pink panties or something like that that said Travis on it or something like that. She claimed that this was all Travis's idea. So she just, like I said, she just tried to paint this other picture of Travis. So let's get to the verdict. She was found guilty of first-degree murder on May 8th of 2013. However, this is where it gets a little tricky because they actually had the death penalty for this case. That's what they were wanting to have her sentence be. And she even said in one of her interviews, in one of her first interviews when she was being questioned, that if she did do this, she would beg for the death penalty. But anyway, so she got up in front of the jury and she talked about why she shouldn't get the death penalty. And she points to her family and she says, because of my family. Then she proceeds to say that with the permission of whoever she needs permission from, she has ideas of what she can do in the prison. She can start a recycling program. And then she said that she designed this shirt that says, I'll see if I can find a picture to pop it up on the screen, but it says Survivor on it. And she said that some percentage of the proceeds would go to domestic violence survivors and that kind of thing. And it's just what is wrong with her in her head that she thinks this is okay? Because she's trying to make it out to be like she's a domestic violence survivor from Travis and that kind of thing. But while she's doing all of this, there was one part in one of the videos of the trial that I was watching where they actually showed the family, and the family's just sitting there are you freaking kidding me? I think it was his sister. She just rolls her eyes really? This is what you're trying to do? Really? But anyway, because the jury came back, it was 8-4 for death. So 8 for death, 4 for life imprisonment. Because there was no unanimous decision on what her sentence should be, they had to do this all over again. They had to get a new jury, and the new jury ended up being 11-1 in favor of the death penalty. Now, from what I understand, in that jurisdiction, if you have, I think it's 2 mistrials like that, then they automatically just get life imprisonment. So, What Jodi ended up getting was life in prison with no possibility of parole. But here's where it gets a little interesting. Back in 2019, they decided that they wanted to appeal this. And their reasoning behind it was that there was misconduct by Juan Martinez, who was the prosecutor. They said that he made this into a circus and he gave out information to people who broadcasted it. He yelled at people. He acted a certain way in the courtroom. But then on March 24th, 2020, so this year, just recently, the court actually upheld the conviction, and they said that there was no misconduct. And also, this is just opinion based, this is just my opinion. Even if there was misconduct, I highly doubt that a jury would lessen her sentence or that they would think any differently about this case. I do think that that's something that there's so much information out there right now that I don't think that a jury would be able to find her innocent or that they would lessen her sentence. I really don't. There's just been so much coverage of this particular case that I don't see anyone being able to do anything besides life in prison. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my opinion. Okay, this is where I'm gonna read off the screen a little bit because this is actually where we start going over the anti-MLM portion of this before we get into my final thoughts on this whole case and the whole just thing that happened. Prepaid legal services is now known as LegalShield. If you don't know what they are, they're a network marketing company. If you've been here for a while, you know I'm very anti-MLM. I'm very anti that kind of structure. I think it's a very predatory structure. Now, I didn't do too much digging on this particular MLM too much, so if you guys want more of a deep dive, let me know in the comment section below, but I wanted this to be mostly about the case and obviously the true crime portion. But let's go over a little bit about what LegalShield, formerly known as Prepaid Legal, what they're about. So this is on their website. It says, let's be honest, legal issues get expensive. Time is valuable and attorneys charge hundreds per hour. With a legal plan, you know up front what you're getting, and our attorneys are incentivized to spend time with you, not watch the clock. Legal issues can be confusing, complicated, and even a little embarrassing. Save time, save money, and protect yourself and your family with a legal plan. Americans have trusted LegalShield for over 45 years, so join today. Instead of paying an attorney by the hour, you pay a small monthly fee starting at $24.95 and get a huge variety of legal services without a huge legal bill. Services like consultation with an attorney, document review, preparation of a will, and defense at civil trials are all included as standard benefits. Just using the plan once can save you literally thousands of dollars. And then it says watch the video on our homepage for more information. So that's what it's all about. Now, if you're interested on how much is it to sign up as an actual, I don't know what they call them, consultants, associates, whatever, but associate, it says it right there. To become an associate, back up. To become a LegalShield associate to sell LegalShield plans and become eligible to earn commissions and bonuses off of those sales, about 1.6% of all active members are also associates who made at least one sale in 2018. The current cost of becoming an associate is $99 plus any applicable state licensing fees. Associate sign-up fees will be refunded if the associate terminates their agreement within 30 days of the effective date. Now, there is an income disclosure statement, but it's a little kind of odd. But there's also 4 ways that you can make money with LegalShield. There's personal sales, there's sales by associates on your team in this kind of a structure. There's renewals, and there's also bonuses. But how much can you actually make being an associate? So it says on their website, being a successful LegalShield business takes hard work and time. It is not a pathway to quick riches. Most associates sell LegalShield plans as a way to make a part-time income. For associates with 0 to 2 years of experience who made at least one sale, average annual earnings were $504 for 2018. Approximately 76% of all associates across experience years made less than $1,000 in 2018. So let's take a look at their actual income disclosure statement because it just, oh God. So it says average annual earnings for associates making at least one sale in 2018 by number of years as LegalShield associate and type of sales. So it shows your primary individual sales and then your group sales. If you've been in it for less than a year, your individual sales are an average of $455, and then your average group sales are $627. So if you keep moving up, it kind of looks like you're gonna make the most of your money with your group sales. Do you see that on that little graph? Yeah, you're gonna make the most of your money with a team. And then it says that if you've been in the business for 20 plus years, your individual sales average would be $7,383 a year, and then the average of your group sales would be $16,544. How do people make a living off of this? Like, I don't know how you would make a living off of that, honestly. Even if you've been in it for 20 plus years, can you imagine being in it for 20 plus years and making that little money annually? I mean, that's an average, obviously, but what? Okay. Anyway, like I said, for my anti-MLMers that are watching this, if you're more interested in me doing a deep dive on that particular company, let me know and I'll try to see if I can dig up some kind of information. I'm sure I can. If they've been in business for 45 years, I'm sure I can find some kind of information. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comment section. But let's get to my final thoughts on this whole entire case. What I find interesting about Jodi's demeanor is how calm she is, how soft-spoken she is, how she just kept her cool throughout the whole trial. I mean, how many times did you actually see her cry? How many times did you actually see her lose her freaking marbles? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like with a case like that, I don't know. I mean, she showed a little bit of remorse, but I don't know if that was true, like if that was her actual feeling, or if she was just faking it, because she does seem like a master manipulator. A lot of people, when I was researching this case, a lot of people said that she is the perfect description of narcissistic personality disorder, which I did go over. At the same time, now I know that some people might come for me in the comment section about this next statement. I already kind of mentioned it before. So, of course, Travis didn't deserve to die, especially the way that it happened. No one deserves to be murdered and slaughtered in that kind of a way. No one deserves that. And I do send my condolences and my respects to the family and anyone who knew Travis. Of course, it's horrible what Jodi did to him. However, I do think that Travis did toy with her emotions. I do think that mentally because you can't tell a girl that it's over and then continue to still have sex with her. Especially if you know that there is something severely wrong with her, and if your friends have told you, hey, I'm scared that she's gonna do something to you. Why would you continue to have an intimate relationship with her? Because at that point, you don't know what she's going to do. So, and I do feel like he probably, like he said, that Jodi was his kryptonite. Jodi was his weakness. And it's almost like he was just addicted to her. But I do think that he was kind of a ladies' man. I do think that he did toy with her emotions. I don't think that he laid a hand on her. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I don't feel as though there was any kind of domestic violence or anything. I can be wrong. We'll never know because Travis isn't here to tell his side of the story. But I don't think that he ever laid a hand on her. I really don't. I think that he was just mentally just messing with her emotions, because you say you're done multiple times, but you're still having relationship, like an intimate relationship with her. You're also seeing other girls at the same time. And I don't know. I do think that it probably did play a toll on her mental health, because if she already, me personally, I think that she already did have a mental illness. So if you have someone who already has some kind of issue and they're not seeking professional help, you're not helping the situation if you're just making it, just doing what you're doing. And I'm not saying that he deserved it. I'm not saying that he was the one that did this to himself. No, that's not what I'm saying. Because relationships like this happen on a daily basis. They're called toxic relationships. It happened to me, but I didn't hurt anybody, okay? I left the relationship and I went on with my life. That is what normally happens in these situations, that you leave the relationship when you finally have had enough, and you leave and never talk to them again. But in Jodi's mind, that wasn't the way that she was gonna go. I do think that it was premeditated because of the fact of how she got 3 canisters of gas and put them in her car. She dyed her hair. I believe, if I read it correctly, that she rented a car and the gun that went missing, and that's the one that just so happened to be the one that was shot at Travis. I don't know. She said that it wasn't premeditated. I personally do think it was premeditated. I think she went there knowing that whether she was going to scare him or whether she was going to murder him. Obviously, we'll never know. This is just speculation. We'll never know for sure, because she's not going to tell us the truth. Obviously, she's not going to tell us the truth. Here's something that I haven't seen anyone talk about yet. And this is kind of where I guess I'll finish off my rant and ramble about this case. Jodi was a photographer, okay? She was a photographer. She put the camera through the wash, but she didn't take the memory card out of it. Now, I understand this was back in 2008, and maybe people didn't know that much about technology, but I feel like if you're a photographer and if you know how a camera works, you know how all of that works, you would take the memory card. Even if it was just in case, even if the memory card was, like, it wasn't salvageable or anything like that. So was she wanting to be caught? Did she want her 15 minutes of fame? Which obviously it wasn't 15 minutes, it was years. And people, I mean, I'm still talking about her, and it's been over a decade since she murdered someone. But did she maybe, just maybe, leave that there on purpose so that she could be caught? Or maybe she just didn't know, and maybe she thought that if she put it through the wash and it got wet and it would short circuit, which the way that some of these memory cards work, like the SD cards and stuff, that's not, as long as there's no power going to it. Because I asked my fiance about this last night when I was kind of coming up with this theory, and he said that as long as there's no power going to it, it's not going to short circuit. And if there is power going to it, then that's a little different. But if it gets wet, if you clean it off properly, you can still retrieve whatever's on that memory card. So I'm kind of thinking, did she maybe do it on purpose? Or maybe she really didn't know? I mean, but you would think, like, you would take anything that could possibly have some kind of evidence linking you to the murder. I mean, there was also a palm print that was there too, but I feel like the pictures that they got off of that camera was like the final, we got you. We got you. You cannot lie to us anymore because we have you on camera. Of course, when the murder was happening, they could only see like a foot, and they saw Travis in the photos, but so they didn't actually have her in the photo, but it was time stamped that she was there when it happened. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, because, I mean, maybe I can't even keep talking about it because I'm just going to keep rambling. But let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you guys think about this case. I know that this has been covered a lot, but a lot of people really wanted me to cover this. I did a poll in my community tab, and this is the one that you guys wanted me to cover. I will cover all of the ones that were in that community tab, but I'm going to probably figure out which order, which I think, judging by what the poll percentages were with the votes and everything, I'll probably go in the same order that they were in. But anyway, if you have watched up to here, thank you so much for watching this really long video. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you subscribe if you want. And I guess that's all. I'll see you guys next time. This is Monica reporting to you live from a highway. Bye.